Welcome everyone. We have a slightly different setup today. Hence, if you're joining us from Facebook, you might not have seen the usual countdown. In fact, you may have even seen us stuffing around a little bit there because I never know what actually goes to Facebook versus what you get on Zoom. So apologies if you saw us running around and talking rubbish in the setup, but at least you know it is live. We do fly by the seat of our pants sometimes in the setup here, but the one thing that is well thought out and always organised is the information and the knowledge that we are going to impart upon you today. It is April 2022. We're into the second quarter of this year. So there is a lot that has happened in the first quarter, and it is sometimes a good time to take stock, think about what you want to do for the rest of the year, because you are one quarter of the way through the year, which means that is more than 25% is done and dusted. So if there ever was a time for you to refocus, re-strategize, and get yourself sorted for the rest of the year, now is that time, and you are in the right place to get it going. So I was really just killing time to make sure microphones were on, sound was working. No one's waving at me wildly, so hopefully that means it is all working. So let's get you loose and warm, much like you would be if you're playing sport. And I've got a thought starter for you just here to really get you going. So I'll tell you the problem, all right? Now, whether you know this or not, this is the problem that I know all of you on the line today are either currently suffering from all of it, part of it, some of it, or have suffered from it. And that is, how do you buy a home that you can afford, that is right for you, and that will add long-term value for your life without making a mistake? Okay, pretty simple proposition, but that is what time and time again, everyone that we meet is always worrying, stressing, wondering, how do they get that right home for them that has that value and without making a mistake? Because you can't go and return it. It's not like online shopping where, you know, you say, oh, the size isn't quite right, you're worried about this, and you just return it. You can't do it. It is a big commitment. It's potentially the biggest commitment financially you will ever make in your life. So you want to make sure that you get it right. Now, there is a solution, okay? Some of you probably already know this. Some of you might have different solutions. There is no quick fix, okay? I'd love to say that you could just take a magic pill. I know anyone who's been in the quest for weight loss will be looking for that magic pill that you take and immediately you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It doesn't happen. But it's really about setting yourself up with the correct framework, having the right mindset so that you can overcome challenges, because this is something that you need to think about always, over and over. It isn't a simple set and forget, and you really got to think through it. So I've come up with what we call a three-part framework, and there are three key pillars that you need to think about, you need to understand, and if you follow through with these three key pillars, that is how you will bust through that problem. You'll get through it, and you'll be able to have the confidence to go out there and make those buying decisions and or to continue enjoying that home, whether it be your first home or an investment property. So the first one, number one, is find, okay? Pretty simple proposition. You need to find the right property. Now, most of you know how to do that. You're going through, you know the number one rule is location. The number two rule is location. And the third rule is the number three rule is location. So it's a pretty simple proposition there, but it's more than that. So for those of you that might already own a home, you might be saying, well, how is that relevant? You need to still make sure that that home is suitable for your current life, for that location, and for where it is. So you're continually making sure that it is the right home in that area and the right home for you. Second pillar is finance. Now, I love real estate and I love seeing people buy homes because it is the one asset that you can always use other people's money in order to help you finance that acquisition, buy that home, whatever it is. So whether it be traditional banks, whether it be mum and dad helping you out, whether it be friends, family, whoever it is, you might be borrowing money off them. You might be buying the property jointly with them. It is the great thing about real estate that you don't have to save up the entire purchase price. And it really, really can be a simple process, but there's a lot of pitfalls if you don't get it right. And that really can be the difference between enjoying that home and it being a drag on you if you don't get the financing right. you don't take the time to understand it and get that structure set up right from day one. The third key pillar is manage. Now, if you're an investor on the line today, you say, oh yeah, that's pretty straightforward. How do I manage that investment property? But it's relevant to everyone, no matter the purpose of here. And that is, you've got to understand, how are you going to manage this big investment within your life? So for example, if you're thinking about buying a rundown place and doing a major renovation, potentially even knocking it down and rebuilding it, how much time have you got to invest in doing that? How much experience have you got? Because whilst it might seem easy if we watch all of these home renovation shows on TV, it is a very fine line between overcapitalizing and overspending and actually getting it just right. And you've got to remember, your personal taste often isn't everyone else's taste. So you need to really understand that, manage your time through that, manage your experience, and obviously overall manage that whole investment in that big asset. So it is obviously for investors thinking about how you're going to collect the rent from your tenant, how you're going to find new tenants, how you're going to pay the outgoings, how you're going to take care of all the maintenance that's involved in owning a home. So really, really important. So those are the three key pillars: find, finance, and manage. Now you need to delve into each of these areas and properly understand some of the ways that you can get through and help yourself understand some of the pitfalls. And ideally, for wherever you are in that stage or that cycle, you should pick one of these that you think will derive the most value or where you're really struggling. But as I said, it is not set and forget. So how do you get through this? Well, you've got to, as I said, work out which one of these three key pillars is creating you the biggest roadblock, or what is most relevant to you to try and fine tune. And then you've got to go over and over and over again and continue to do that. So as I said, you can't just do it once and then leave it. You should be continually evaluating. Now, this isn't meant to be homework. It's not meant to be a hard task, but it really is all about having that process, that structure, that strategy in place so that you don't get stuck on that problem. You don't feel worried. You don't feel that it is all too hard and you cannot get by with it. Okay? So with that in mind, before we get too much further, for those of you that might be wondering, is this right for me? You're not really sure who we are or whether it makes sense for you. Let me just say one thing. It doesn't matter where you are on that journey, whether you're a first home buyer, whether you're looking just to upgrade your home. You might even be only just looking to rent and move out of mum and dad's home for the first time. You might already own an investment property, thinking about becoming an investor, or own multiple investment properties. Wherever you are on that ladder, there is value in today's session for you. Now, who is Salvo if you haven't dealt with us before? Well, we do a lot of things. We've got a lot of different businesses, and I could be here all day explaining it to you. But ultimately, we have a single focus and a single goal right across all of our businesses and all of our key team members. And that is helping you create a home. So wherever it might be in amongst one of these three pillars, that is what we're all about. We've got a number of different businesses. So I guarantee you that we can add value and we can help you on this journey if you're looking for that help. All right, so what are we going to do today? Pretty straightforward. It's the same structure that we follow through each week. Section 1 is going to be the weekly news. What have we seen happening around the countryside? I will try and do that in less than 90 seconds. Section 2, helping you take back control. So remember that framework that we talked about in the three pillars? We're going to dive into a couple of those pillars. We do it every week. This week, we're going to talk about rentvesting. We're going to talk about investor loans and give you a bit more of the behind the scenes understanding as to how each of those work. It'll go for about 20 minutes, and that's where I really want you to focus and pay attention. Then section 3, we're going to wrap up and I'm going to outline the path and where you can go next. So again, it's a straightforward process. A lot of people sort of get value out of today, but then they feel a little bit lost, not sure what do they do next. So I'll outline the path and how you can really take what you've learned today and get ultimate value out of it and move forward. So that'll go for about 5 minutes. We should have you out of here just after 12:30. What are we now? We start at 12:30, I think just after 1 o'clock. I got a little bit confused with the time there. So hopefully you're sitting down, you've got your lunch out, you've got your feet up and you're relaxed and get stuck into it. All right, so first up is news. As I said, I'm going to do this in 90 seconds. You will see a timer down here that will count down. And when time is up, time is up. and we are away. All right, so these are the major themes that I've seen happening around the countryside. House prices fall in Sydney and Melbourne. We're actually going to delve into that a little bit deeper, so I'll skip over that for now. Federal budget 2022, what it means for you. Pretty straightforward. I touched on this last week. Really, when it comes to home buying, the only thing that was in the budget for home buyers was first home buyers with that deposit home loan guarantee scheme, whatever it's called, where it allows you to buy a home with only a 5% deposit, and the federal government will guarantee the remaining 15%, so you don't have to pay lenders' mortgage insurance. Otherwise, the rest is really just election grabbing handouts. Buyers lured with perks, lower rates. Home loans, we're going to touch on that a little bit more. There's a lot of options with cashbacks, discounted rates, and really, if you know what you're doing, as I said in that second pillar about finance, you really can get some good deals out there, and it is worth looking at that. A star agent, for those of you particularly our younger audiences, will know Gavin Rubenstein. He's got a show on one of the various different ones. He runs around looking like a multi-millionaire real estate agent. He gives his tips as to how to choose the best investment property. And what I'll tell you, very simple, is he said, you need to go into it with intention, and that intention should be to buy and hold forever, because a smart investment takes time. Lastly, the regions, are they growing at the expense of cities? So we have seen over the last 2 years that regional Australia has grown the strongest compared to the capital cities. The last time that happened was back in the early 1980s. So for a lot of our viewers, you might not have even been born then. Is that going to reverse that trend? Well, I think we're starting to already see that as the borders have opened up. We're starting to get migration will start happening again. And the reality of people working from home 5 days a week turns into just a pipe dream, where perhaps there will be hybrid working, and for a lot of people, they will need to be back in the office full time. And the lure of the city will get stronger and stronger, and I think we'll start to see that trend, sharply turn around. And I believe in the next couple of years, we should be seeing really strong growth within our major capital cities. All right, I went a little bit over time. I'm going to bring Jack on in a moment, but I do want to just quickly touch on here for those of you that are wondering and you want to know the auction statistics. We had a national clearance rate of 70%. The big markets, Sydney 68.2%, Melbourne 69%. Very strong numbers. Both Sydney and Melbourne were Super Saturdays, more than 1,000 auctions. Of course, not this weekend. The following weekend will be Easter. The comparatives here were Easter, and hence much lower numbers. But those of you that are worrying too much, saying the market is coming off, we're definitely seeing transactions to continue going through. But all important, what about prices? Well, it's the start of a new month. So the good thing about that is that CoreLogic puts out its monthly price house stats. And to help me with all of this data, Jack's going to come on and give us a bit of a breakdown. So Jack, welcome, come in. We're going to use the big TV screen. So hopefully you can see it. Now, we can all read these numbers, and I think it's pretty simple to say for the month, nationally, we had 0.7% growth. Yep. The big talk is all about Sydney and Melbourne recording a negative number. Yep. Now, it's not a big negative number, 0.2% for Sydney, 0.1% for Melbourne. And that is across everything. I know there's a lot of breakdown between it. Freestanding homes, apartments. But ultimately, the way that I look at it, when people start stressing about these numbers, look at the annual figure. 17.7 and just under 10%. That's pretty strong. So I don't think that there's any call for alarm yet. Yep. But tell me, what should our listeners be thinking about? What can they actually expect to see behind these numbers? And is it all doom and gloom? Should we be going and hiding and burying our head in the sand? Or should we be continuing to feel good and buying new cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, new watches, whatever it is? What do these mean? Tell us.
Yes, James, you're right. And we've seen like the Melbourne and Sydney, the monthly for the March, we're seeing a little bit of the decrease. But like you said, it's right. We're seeing the annual growth. Even we see the quarter, which is still positive. And which is the quarter increase, the home value for national is 2.4%. Although this is slower, this is a lower number, this is only the half compared with the same period last year, which is March quarter 2021. We have 5.8% of the value increase for that quarter. But considering we have the very, very good numbers through the 2021 the whole year. Now we're pretty much a little bit cooling down. Plus we have the more stock on the market. We have the other sort of like the fact might be people thinking affected the market a little bit. So giving the figures 2.4% for the quarter increase, which is still above the average level. So we don't need to worry about the market.
So putting it simply, and I think Greg's touched on this before, don't get caught up in individual monthly numbers, because who knows what was sold, what wasn't sold, the makeup of it, because there's markets within markets. If we're sort of looking at this quarterly figure that's, 3 consecutive months, 2.4%, that's still pretty strong. We come to these markets, sure, they're low numbers, they're still positive, and I don't think anyone is going to be unhappy when they've seen, 10, almost 20% growth in those two major markets over the last 12 months, that they're saying, going up just a little bit slower. Because I always tell my kids about the hare and the tortoise, slow and steady wins the race. You don't have to get rich today. You can get rich gradually over time.
You're 100% right.
Now, you're just talking about more stock on the market. I see you've given me this graph to have a look through. What exactly do you mean, or what is this telling our buyers out there? Because there's some positive numbers, some negative numbers, and I'm assuming there's some correlation between whether we're seeing positive and negative and how the house price growth is going on. So what exactly does this mean?
This figure, this pictures basically tell us the listing, new listing on the market. Basically, we divide it by the different capital city, but we major look in the Sydney and the Melbourne, which is two biggest city for the country. But how we say the Sydney, which is 7.5% more listing than last year, and the Melbourne is also 5.5% more listing than last year, which means we have huge amount of this stock on the market to the buyer, which is good things for the buyer, because give them the opportunity to negotiate the price. They have a more choice, and also it will help to cooling down a little bit on the market. That's why we're saying the market pace is a little bit slowing down. But we're thinking, like we have looked the other capital city, we might have saw some negative growth, but it doesn't matter. And because those city, the stock is not enough for people to purchase, which driving the price up. So this is like demand and the supply. So we look in the Melbourne and the Sydney, we have a huge number of stock on the market. We still got such good number, like we seen before, 2.4% of the quarterly increase, which means the market is still good.
Okay, good. I've seen a few comments coming through from people saying there's a bit of reflection on the TV and you can't see it. So we will try and share after these graphs if you didn't see it. But basically what Jack was saying, I'll break it down into 2 sentences for you. It's a simple lesson in supply and demand. We talk about this all the time. When there's more supply than demand, prices will slightly go down or stay at the same level. When there is less supply than demand, prices will go up. So simply we're seeing here that there's slightly more supply of homes for sale in Sydney and Melbourne. Brisbane and Adelaide, there's significantly less. And guess what? Surprise, surprise. If we go back here, Sydney and Melbourne have seen, sort of staying steady, and Brisbane and Adelaide are seeing really, really strong growth. So again, just remember, it's a supply and demand story. These are not new homes. This is just, you might be falling victim to it as well. The local real estate agent says, hey, did you see the price I just achieved next door? Did you see what I got for John? Did you see what I got for Mary? And what do? You might not be wanting to sell, but you say, oh, well, if I can get that kind of price, I'll try. But you may not be serious. And that's what we're sort of seeing coming through here. And people shouldn't really stress about that too much.
Yes. No.
All right, now just quickly before I let you go, I saw another slide you had here on rental figures. Just tell us in a quick snapshot for investors, we're starting to see some good news, because I can see positive numbers across here. I'm not too sure about the detail, but it's looking better and better, isn't it?
Exactly. Like we say, the quarterly increase for the rental, which is 2.6%. The last quarter, which is December 2021, we're seeing this number is 1.9%, which means the rental is keep growth, and which is good things for the investor. That's why we're seeing more and more investors starting inquiry to purchase the property. And plus, after the border is open, we're already seeing a lots of the immigration overseas students flying into the Sydney and the Melbourne, we had the huge rental demand, and this could eventually convert into the purchase demand because they fly into the country. They might live in here for a few years. So now we might see the rental market is booming, the rental is going up, and eventually we will see the demand for the purchase, for the buying, and also the property price is going up eventually again.
All right, so you heard it there from Jack. Basically, in spite of what some of the naysayers may be saying, there's a lot of positivity out there. And I think one of the things that I gleaned from this today is that whilst house prices might be starting to level out a little bit, there is this underlying current that's happening in the rental market. And remember, renters eventually become buyers. And that's probably what's going to get us through coming here. And the thing you should really watch this space of Sydney and Melbourne, because it has been woeful the last 2 years, right? We're not going to lie to you. It's been terrible, right? But you're now seeing for the quarter, 2.3, 2.5%. It's getting better and better. And when we break this down, which, we might do another session on in a bit more detail, and we have a look at apartments versus freestanding houses, apartments took the brunt of it. It was terrible. It was carnage, in 2020 when no one knew what was happening. We've had no migration, no students, nothing, but it's been really, really strong this year. So I expect to see bigger and better things happening. So Jack, just to sum it up, people should relax, don't get too stressed, but still be wary and keep an eye on this, and probably just tune into us every week. And that's the easiest way, isn't it?
Yes. Relax like us, and we'll see the good results eventually. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to move on to the next story. So thank you, Jack.
Thanks, James.
Now, I'm very excited because those of you that watched before, I had a new tool. Greg's going to bring it in for us.
Yeah.
Bear with us for a moment. Greg, come on in.
I'm bringing this big thing in, and because my handwriting is terrible, can I ask you to do all the handwriting?
I will. So I'm going to put up some facts and figures here in a moment, but what I'd like to talk to you all about is a concept called rentvesting. Now, we just talked about where the rents were going. We've talked about house prices. And for those of you that have tuned in, we have talked about rentvesting before, but we continually got feedback from people out there, and it was pretty simple, that's great, but how does it actually work, the nuts and bolts?
Yeah.
So Greg's been crunching the numbers. I've got some of the figures here. I won't lie to you. We're not going completely by the seat of our pants here. We did this about half an hour ago. There was a lot of stress. There was things being thrown around, but simply, Greg, just tell people, what is rentvesting as a concept?
Okay, rentvesting as a concept is live or rent where you want to live and invest where you can afford, to put it in simple terms.
Okay, so I live in Brighton.
Yep.
Or do we say Brighton?
Brighton.
Right, okay. Now, it's expensive. I don't even know why I live there, to be honest with you, other than that's just where I've been. And so, for people that might want to be living in Brighton,
yep.
Can we sort of just break down for them? So just give us, and let's talk about apartments as a concept here, because this is probably relevant mainly to first home buyers.
We also want to compare apples with apples, so we're not skewing the figures. Thank God you're drawing, because I can't. My handwriting is terrible. Here we go, Brighton.
Okay, so in Brighton,
yes.
For an apartment, yep. What is the median price?
Median price would be 1.22 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is a big number. So to buy the average apartment in Brighton, you need $1.22 million. Okay, and what's the average rent coming on something like that?
Rent, $600 a week.
Okay, that's what it's going to cost you to buy. That's what it'll cost you to rent. Now, give it to us in a monthly figure. What does that equal?
2.6 round figures.
$2,600 a month.
Per month average.
Okay, yeah. So if you're renting the average apartment in Brighton, you might love the area, you want to stay there, it's going to cost you about $2,600 a month. Now, if you want to buy that home, let's have a quick go here. So if we want to buy and we want, say, a 20% deposit, what's that?
240K.
240,000.
You've got stamps and legals.
So let's add stamps and so forth. What, another 60,000?
60 grand. So you need
Okay.
$300,000.
So you're going to need roughly $300,000 cash. Okay. Now, if you're a first home buyer, you've probably spat your sandwich on the ground, drinks, whatever it is. Now, of course, maybe you might not go with a 20% deposit, but that is a huge amount of money that you need, okay? Most people don't have that kind of cash. Now, on top of that, what's the size loan you're going to need to take out?
At least $1 million.
Okay. So if you need a $1 million loan,
Yep.
what is that roughly in monthly repayments?
Let's have a look at here. 3.8 round figures, generally 3,800 per month. That's cheaper to rent.
Right. Now, the key thing with this here, okay, the cost of ownership to buy that, assuming you've got the $300,000, assuming you can afford a $1 million loan and you can borrow that much money, is $3,800, as opposed to paying rent of roughly $2,600. So that is $1,200 more. Now, sure, you've got an appreciating asset. Don't get me wrong. I'm not recommending renting for the rest of your life. But Greg, before you show me the alternative and how we can turn this into Rentvesting, why is it such a big difference?
Well, typically in areas like Brighton, these high things, the yields, what they call yield between the value of the property and what sort of rental you get is much lower in upper market areas. So the value, that's very expensive, but your rent is not. So the yields are much lower in areas like Brighton, etc.
Okay, so let's say I'm happy,
Yep.
I'm living there at the moment,
Yep.
and everyone's at me, I've got to buy a home.
Yes.
I'm paying $2,600 a month in rent.
Yep.
I like where I live, I'm happy with the suburb, but I want to get on the property ladder.
Yes.
I don't have that kind of cash.
Yes.
I don't want to be paying that much.
But you've got extra money for free now.
The rent vesting part, I assume this is the renting part, continue to rent.
Yep.
How do we become an investor then?
Okay, just to know, let's choose another suburb. We're being South.
We're going to go with South Bank. We did pre-prepare this.
We know it. So.
Okay, and obviously, as those of you that have been watching will know, it's a big area for investors. All right, so what are we talking about is the median apartment price here.
545, so yeah,
545,000, okay?
Yeah.
Big difference to the 1.22 million bucks. And what are we seeing here as the rent that is coming off this?
on average.
Okay. So we're paying rent at 410
which
a week.
means
And what's that per month?
1780. 1780.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it costs. That's the average rent here. Now, before you start saying, but I don't want to live in South Bank, that's okay. You can stay in Brighton. We're just doing these numbers here and we're going to pull it all together in a moment. All right. So if that's the case, now if we're going to come and buy this property on like for like,
Yep.
okay, with your 20% deposit, what's that?
110k.
110.
Stamps,
Stamp duty.
and stuff to another 20k. So 130 you need, as opposed to what we looked at, 300.
Okay. So before we even get started, you might be able to afford that, $130,000. Now remember, you might go with a slightly lower deposit, right? If we look back here, that apartment that you love in Brighton, $300,000 versus $130,000, okay? So how does this all tie in together? All right, if that's what you're doing, what's the loan that you're then going to need to get?
435,000-ish.
And that would be what in monthly repayments?
About 1650. Straight away you go, whoa.
Okay, so look at that, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very, very simple formula. Now, this is all based on the reported figures by CoreLogic. You're not always going to get that positive spread. But as Greg said, typically areas that have got lower prices and don't command the same premium in terms of freestanding house prices and so forth are going to be closer, all right? So straight away, that's costing you nothing. Now, how does this all work? How does it tie it in? Well, you might have that much money, but you might not want to live there because you might want to live over here in Brighton. So keep paying your rent. Don't worry about buying this house that you're living in. make your first home an investment property at a fraction of the price with a loan amount that you can afford and where the loan repayments are less than or equal to the rent. So it's a really, really simple proposition, isn't it, Greg?
The key thing about that as well, James, you can, you say, well, you can use this to then leverage either into another one like this or ultimately go into the property. So use this to gain wealth, to buy the one you want. So you get onto the property ladder.
Yeah.
Important, get onto the property ladder.
So remember, everyone, we say this all the time. It's not about timing the market. It's time in the market. So what Greg's saying is, you can afford this today. Do this today. It's okay. If you say that you don't like this area, I don't know why, because I think it's fantastic. But if you don't like it, make it an investment property, because I tell you, there's thousands and thousands of tenants that love it. You can afford it. You'll get this spread. And you can still be a renter over here. But guess what? When you're at the dinner parties, the barbecues, you can say, I'm a homeowner, because you are. And you don't have to tell people you don't own your current home because you're now a rentvestor. All right, Greg, is there any other sort of pitfalls or traps? We've obviously run through one example and it can skew depending on where those figures are, but I think that's, to me, it's a pretty compelling answer.
Very, very much so. And then the same thing is where you talk about there are some real big positives in buying an investment property. You're going to benefit from all your costs, like your stamp duty savings. All those things are tax deductible. You then got depreciation. So even your rent there is starting to look better. You're getting some really good returns. Ultimately, only negative is you might have to pay capital gains tax if you sell it. Our advice is not potentially sell it. Use that to leverage into another property, whether it's your home in Brighton or another investment property.
All right, I love it.
Yeah.
So Greg, that was great. Hopefully we had some new texters. It took me back to my days of primary school. I've got it all over my fingers, but hopefully that came through. That was good. So great, Greg. Thanks for that.
I'll take my board
away. You take that over.
Yeah.
All right. So rentvesting sounds pretty good, but it is a very different proposition getting an investment loan to getting a traditional home loan. So Becky's going to come in and join us.
Thank you, James.
All right, good. Now, we've got the full panel here with us today. Hopefully, I'm going to try and look a little bit bigger. I've moved my seat forward because I was worried between Greg, Becky. I felt okay standing next to Jack, but these two make me feel like a dwarf.
So I'll just move back a bit for you too.
Good. Now, tell us, Greg just walked us through that example. Those numbers were pretty astonishing. I don't think I've ever looked at it in that comparison before.
Yes.
So let's say we've won over. There's a heap of listeners today that are saying, I want to do that. I want to get on the market today. I can see the value in that. When it comes to getting a home loan and it's going to be an investment loan, what are some of the differences between that and an owner-occupier home loan? And what are some of the things that people really need to keep an eye out for or think differently?
Yeah, I think that like with home loans and investment loans, there are differences. They are slight insofar as, say, any home loan product, you can get the same type of product for an investment loan, but it comes down to what sort of loan you actually choose. So by way of example, if you have a home loan already and you're out there buying an investment property and you're taking out an investment loan, you probably wouldn't want to go out there and get all the fancy features that come with it, like 100% offset, all the redraws, and then have to pay the professional fees that are associated with that. What I find is that most clients are probably better suited to going out there and getting a basic investment loan, which is very, very low on an interest rate, doesn't have all the features that a traditional home loan has, because what they want to be doing is perhaps concentrating on paying down the debt on their principal place of residence and then taking advantage of all the negative gearing that comes with the investment loan from that perspective.
Okay. And then, we talk often about, being match fit.
Yes.
Now, I'm not talking about the kids' sport. Yes. I'm not talking about you trying to relive the heydays of when you were playing professional sport. When we talk about getting match fit for getting a home loan,
yes,
is there things that you need to do differently if you're actually planning to continue paying rent? Or, is there still the same sort of things you need to think about and be prepared for?
It's the same thing. I mean, being prepared and prepared in advance is probably the most important thing as well.
The Boy Scouts motto was be prepared.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we always say that, whenever buying a property, we live by the motto, it's finance first. Get your finances in order, make sure that affordability is there, that you're buying within the capacity that you can afford, having the right amount of savings from that perspective as well. Having the right structure in place as well, depending on whether you're purchasing, in your own personal name, perhaps you're buying in a company structure if it's an investment property, and just making sure that being extremely prepared and being very, very well match fit as well.
So that's an interesting concept. If it's an investment property,
yes,
we talk about in the second pillar finance, not only getting the home loan, but getting that structuring and so forth, right?
Yep.
Quite often people will consider putting it in a company name or a family trust, or maybe even buying it jointly with someone else.
Yes.
Is that a factor to think about, if you are buying it in a company name compared to your own name, or?
Of course it is. Yeah, because then there's different types of structures that come into play. There's different types of supporting documents that needs to be produced as well. Servicing works in a different manner from that point of view as well. If you're buying it in joint names as well, it comes down to the structure of, how those loans, you can take split loans. So if you and I were to purchase a property together, you could take a split for your portion, I could take a split for my portion. There's what's called joint and several guarantees and that as well, which we don't have to go into. That gets a little bit complicated perhaps. But once again, it's about being prepared. You've got to be match fit. You've got to get yourself prepared well in advance from that point of view to make sure that you don't put yourself under any unnecessary stress and duress. Speak to the professionals, people like ourselves, people like yourself, Greg and Jack. Speak to your accountant, financial advisor if you've got a financial planner.
Okay. And tell us just quickly before we wrap up, what are you seeing out there? The Reserve Bank just met yesterday.
Yes.
And all of the so-called experts, all the people out there trading are saying interest rates are going to be at 3% by the end of the year.
Yes.
But the Reserve Bank, he was pretty straightforward. And he said, I'm still in a holding pattern. I'm still not seeing what I'm worried about yet.
Yes.
And I think those that are a little bit wiser, and I know Greg's been around for a long time. You can see from the grey on his hair, you've been around for a long time. Jack and I have been around for a little bit less, but you can never get predictions right.
Never.
So what are we seeing in home loans for people out there if they've got a home loan or they're about to take it out? Is variable rates, spiking, a fixed rate spiking? What should people be wary of that might be happening over the next 30, 60, 90 days?
And that's a good question too. I think when it comes to rate, the difference between variable and fixed, if you want to know what the professionals actually think a potential movement in rates may be, just have a look at the bank's fixed rates. So if you have a look at a bank's 3-year rate, 5-year rates, 2-year fixed rate, whatever that rate may be, that's what the banks anticipate will be the average rate over that 2-year period. So if a 3-year fixed rate, the lowest rate that you can get is 3.2%, that's what the banks are predicting is going to be the average rate over the next 3 years.
Okay.
Now, do they get it right? Probably pretty careful how I say this, but more often they don't.
Yep.
Because look, a lot of people think that rates are already going to move upwards, but as you heard the Reserve Bank, mate, he's in a holding pattern at the moment. He's not in a hurry to actually lift rates as well at the moment. So,
look, and I think that's an important thing. Don't ignore what people are saying, but I know I love going every year to Westpac's sort of budget update and what they've seen happening. And Bill Evans has been doing it forever.
For a long time.
He's actually, he does have a laugh and he says, all right, let's have a look at what I predicted 12 months ago.
He's great like that.
And he compares it to what actually happened. And he's very open saying, well, I got it completely wrong.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And in fact, I'm pretty sure that he says, whilst he might get close-ish, I'm fairly sure that he's never actually got it spot on. He might have got the direction of rates right, but never too close. And he's been doing it for a long time. So,
yeah, you bet.
That is why I think variable rates are still so popular, because people like to feel that, yes, they might lose out, but they think, well, what if I might win by keeping it here?
Yeah.
But maybe when it comes to rentvesting, you want that surety, in terms of saying, all right, well, I'm paying rent, I'm getting rental income, I'd like to fix it. That's perhaps where you see, particularly with investors, a lot more fixed the rates.
That's correct. And it's always a good consideration to take on board as well. It locks in certainty of your repayments, and that's what it gives you peace of mind. When it comes to fixed rates from that point of view, for the next 3 years, rain, hail or shine, that is exactly what your monthly repayment's going to be.
Yep.
And where it fluctuates, and I always say this to clients, if you take out a fixed rate, don't ever look at the variable rates, and then try and work out whether you lost or saved money.
Good advice. And I think too, remember when we did those numbers, the reason why people, when it comes to investment, do like a fixed loan is because you do have to think about it like a business. And so it is much easier to say, okay, I've got certainty over this, I've got certainty over this. You've got a lot less that's uncertain that you've got to worry about. And ultimately that's about, giving yourself peace of mind and worrying about things that are more important.
Yeah, and myself as a borrower, I've taken out plenty of fixed rates. 2-year rates, 5-year rates. I've mixed and matched a little bit as well. So I might, there's times there where I might fix half my portfolio just to lock in that certainty, give me peace of mind. So for the next 3 years, that part of the portfolio or the loan, I don't have to worry about. I know what the repayments are.
Okay, good. All right, Jack, Greg, Becky, any last thoughts, any questions on each other's section? In fact, I think we'll even go so far as you can perhaps gently point out if you think someone's got it wrong or they've missed something. Jack, I'll go with you first. Any comments on what the rest of the guys have said today? Any last thoughts for our...
I think I pretty like the Greg's the topic, and I'm also thinking like to considering to purchase, for example, the example saying Rentvesting for first home buyer, we also can get some government incentive or benefits because that's with the price of range you can get in the incentive. So this is, I think, it's another good point for the Greg's.
Good. For those of you that maybe were watching a couple of weeks ago, any real estate that's brand new in the City of Melbourne Local Council, you're eligible for between 50 to 100% off the stamp duty. So those numbers that we ran with Greg, where I said you need about 130,000 and 20 grand of that was stamp duty, that could be completely gone as well. So that's another big advantage, but that's limited. It ends on 30 June, doesn't it?
Correct.
All right, Greg, any comments on what the guys have said?
As you're saying, we can make predictions, we can do all this stuff, but we don't always get it right. But some very good advice from other guys as well.
All right, good. Becky, any last thoughts?
I'll absolutely support Jack in his comments with regard to taking advantage of the government incentives and grants at the moment. I mean, you'd be crazy not to take advantage of those. And if it is ending on the 30th of June, it's not going to be around for a long time, and you need to take advantage of it and take advantage of it fast as well, because I certainly would be.
Yeah, good. Anything for old folks like us out there? Or is that it? Really just the stamp duty maybe? Okay, good. All right, so remember, if you are a first home buyer, there is a ton of incentives out there for you. If you're not, don't feel like you've missed out. There's just perhaps not as many available to you. All right.
Can I just add something there?
You can.
Previously, before, there were no incentives, or no incentives for investors. Right now, you can actually buy a property and pay no stamp duty. That's huge. And that's used to be only applicable for certain circumstances with first homeowners. So if you're an investor, you've got to come and buy.
All right, so you've all heard it here. If you're thinking about it, jump on, because you've got a very, very limited window to get what Greg's talking about. And I know the boys have got a ton of great properties at the moment that are eligible for 100% off the stamp duty. So if you are thinking about it, get in touch with us, because I know that you can get a good deal. And of course, we'll get you the loan as well, so that you'll get the best rate and everything will run smoothly for you.
You bet.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Good to have you here. Hopefully you all enjoyed the new format. We're able to get a bit of feedback from everyone else as well. So feel free to drop anything in the comments or the chat, depending on where you're viewing this. If you like this new format, you want it to change. We all put on our best socks as well. So hopefully no one had funny socks. I did.
Actually put on socks.
Good, good. I was thinking of doing Michael Jackson style and having white socks, but I've chose to go with my black socks. And we'll mix it up. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Done. Thank you.
All right. So as always, we're going to close out with a few thoughts on where to from here. So I know that a lot of you might be feeling information overload. A lot of you might be pumped and excited and saying, well, what do I do next? How do I take what we've discussed today and actually put it into action and make the moves that I need to from here? Well, it's really, really simple. I told you at the start of today's session, we're more than a quarter of the way through the year. So if you're still living in the past, you're still living in 2021, 2021's dreams, let go. Okay? Let go, because it doesn't matter. You can't go back in time. You've got to focus on moving forward. So the way that I see it is it's really, really simple. You've got three choices from here. All right? What most of you will do is either one of two options under path A. You'll do nothing, okay? Now, I'm not trying to sound rude. I'm not trying to be smart or cute about it. It's pretty simple. You won't make any changes. You'll continue doing what you've been doing. Now, if that's working for you, great, fantastic. Don't make any changes, because if it ain't broke, don't change it. But if you need to move forward, you need to make a change, because if you don't make a change, don't expect a different result. So for those of you that want to make a change, at a bare minimum, go out there and do it yourself. Think about what we've talked about. Remember the 3 pillars that I said. Think about the problem, think about the solution, drill into the most important pillar for you, and really focus in on that for the next 90 days and make those changes. But as an alternative, and what I hope some of you, most of you, I'd love if all of you consider, is path B, the alternative. That is, do it with us. So, I talked about celebrity real estate agent Gavin Rubenstein, and one of his final tips is get professional advice, get someone with the experience, get someone with the knowledge that can help you move forward, because that is what the rich do. That is what the successful people do. They find people with the experience and they leverage that experience. So that's what we're offering to you today. And that is what I hope most of you, all of you, I'd love to do. Now, before I tell you how we can help you, I just want to put a couple of caveats on it. Not everyone is going to be a right fit for us, okay? I'd love to say that everyone can be helped, but ultimately, the people that are going to be the right fit are those of you that have been focused in today's session. You've understood the concept of knowledgeable action. You're an action taker. You're motivated. You're confident, and you're actually prepared to roll up your sleeves and get the work and get it done. Okay. Now, there's not a lot of work you've got to do, but as I said, you've got to be prepared to make those changes. You've got to be prepared to actually take the action when you see those key things happening out there, so that you can get a different result. Now, if you're still listening, then you meet all of that criteria. So how can we help you? Well, I don't know a lot about you. Now, some of you might be my friends, some of you maybe I do, but I'm just going by the list of names and faces that I can see here on Zoom. I can't even see anyone on Facebook, so I don't know a lot about you. So the best way that we can help you to move forward is to get to know a little bit more about you, so that we can help prescribe the best solution for you to be able to move forward. So remember what I said at the start, we've got a ton of different businesses, all focused on that single purpose goal of helping you create a home. So really we need to understand which one of the 3 pillars do you need the most help with, and where can we best help you with moving forward. So the best way to do that is for us to meet up one-on-one. So meet up with me or someone from my team, and I'm talking about 15 to 20 minutes. So it is a very, very small investment that I'm asking from you. It's less than it might take you to walk to your local coffee shop, chat to your barista and walk back. And it's something you can do anytime. We're available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter. We just want to help you. So I guarantee if you will set aside just 15 to 20 minutes of your time, that you will walk away with something that you will find valuable and you can take immediate action. So even if you don't want to progress any further with us, we will give you something, a few tips, a change, wherever it is that you are, that you can actually take away and immediately implement and start seeing some changes come through. Okay. So it's 15 to 20 minutes of your time, and I guarantee that you'll walk away with something valuable you can implement. So if that sounds like you, how do you do it? It's really, really simple. There's 3 ways to do it. First one, there should be the link in the chat or the description, depending on whether you're on Zoom or Facebook. The link will be there somewhere. Jump on and you can book that straight away. Your browser should have been redirected for those Zoom users to that booking page. Lastly, if you have joined and you've provided your email, I will send you a follow-up email after today's session ends with those details and that link. So if you don't have your calendar with you, don't despair. I will follow up with you and do it. If you didn't provide your email, then it should be on our homepage on Facebook, or feel free just to reach out to us and we can either book that directly for you or send you that link so you can do it in the comfort of your home. Okay, now before I let you go, I just want to reminisce for a moment. It is about to be school holidays next week. So those of you with kids will know that that's either a good, bad, or indifferent time. Typically, it's when the juggle of who's going to look after the kids, or perhaps even a great family holiday is about to happen because borders are open, you can travel. So this is a picture I took back in July last year in Hamilton Island. So fantastic part of the world. And I had a great holiday there for about 4 or 5 days. It was really, really nice to get away from the freezing cold weather here in Melbourne. But this almost didn't happen. So as you can imagine, one of the joys of being on holiday is being able to sleep in and not really having much to do. So my eldest daughter, Isabella, she's 12 at the time, I believe. She said to me, "Dad, I'd love to walk up to the top of that mountain and watch the sunrise. Can we do that tomorrow?" I said, "Sure, what a great idea, let's do it." Now, the sun rises bloody early in Queensland. They don't have daylight savings. So we had to get up at about 4:45. Now, what happened the next morning? Well, those of you that know, this really, really annoying thing here, the iPhone, the alarm, it went beep, 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 beep. So what did I do? I do what most of you do. I hit that big snooze button. 9 minutes later, it went off again. I looked around, no one was up, and I said, "Nah, we'll do it later." And I hit stop. Now, just before I fell asleep again, I suddenly thought, no, she was excited. Let's do it. It's not that hard. You're awake now. So I woke her up. We quickly ran to the top of this mountain. We saw the sunrise. You can see the joy on her face. It was one of those really, really special moments that I know I will cherish forever. And I know how much it meant to her. And it almost didn't happen. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you because for those of you that are thinking, "Nah, I'll get to this later," just remember, it's people like me that take the action, that do what sometimes seems like the harder option and don't press the snooze button. They get up, they jump out of bed, they get the great memories like this, that move forward and get those results that they've been looking for. So before you tune out, before you hang up, before you go away, just have a think about that and just remember, later equals never. So if you do want to make a change, then do please jump on, book one of those sessions. It is the smallest possible time commitment that you could make and still have a guarantee of getting a result. So just remember, it's the people that make those changes, the people that take what sometimes seems like the harder option, that get the great memories, that get the results, that get what they want. All right, that is it. Thank you very much for staying till the end. I know that there is a lot of things that people could be doing. I know we went a little bit over time. So again, I appreciate that you may be busy. Hopefully you got to have your lunch. Hopefully this was valuable to you. Let us know if there's any other topics you'd like us to go through, or if you've got any more questions, feel free to shoot them through and we will come back to you as soon as we can. And for now, I look forward to hopefully seeing you again next week, next month, next quarter, whenever it is. Those of you that are going away, have a great time. I wish I was as well. Looking forward to Easter and the school holiday break and enjoying a little bit of rest time, or perhaps you're doubling down for work. So do join us because this is a bit of fun and hopefully we can add some more value to you next week. So for now, on behalf of myself and everyone that joined us today, thank you very much and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.